Jeep has just unveiled the 2024 Jeep Wagoneer S, and I think this is a trend that we're gonna see more companies doing, meaning that they're gonna drop just a pure EV version, but they're still gonna play it safe and have the same platform be built for internal combustion engines as well, like we have on the new Challenger, for example, and also on the Jeep Wagoneer. And I'm sorry if I look a little sweaty, I just ran up and down a mountain this morning and came right back in to record this video. So before we jump into Photoshop here and have a look at this design from a front, side, and rear, and the interior, which is Screen Bonanza, let's have a look at this article from Car and Driver, linked down below in the description. What is going on with the 2024 Jeep Wagoneer S, and why does it look like a sports car and not an off-road, a proper Jeep? Which, by the way, they have a solution for, which we're going to look at here as well. So the new two-row SUV starts at $71,995. Jeeps are not cheap anymore. They're not those rugged base models that you can take on the trail, specifically not if you go with luxury versions like this. $72,000 for the loaded launch edition EV, but more variants possibly including a Trailhawk and an inline 6 gas version coming later. Jeep Wagoneer S is a new electric SUV with 600 horsepower and it claimed 300 miles of range. $72,000 with dual motors, all-wheel drive powertrain, gas-powered option with Stellantis inline 6 engine, as I said, is probably coming later. The Wagoneer S looks slower and sleeker than anything else in the Jeep lineup, and it definitely looks like a very, very sporty SUV, that's for sure. It sits super low, but still we need to have black plastic around the wheelhouses, otherwise it's not going to sell here in the US. Very, very important feature. The 7-slot grille, for example, doesn't feature any actual air intakes, and instead highlighted with the lighting elements between the slots. Very, very fancy. You can see that here. It looks like the Parthenon Temple in Greece. It appears intended to compete with luxury electric SUVs such as the Tesla Model Y. However, when I think of this, compare it to the Tesla Model Y, this feels just like a much, much bigger design than the Tesla Model Y. You also have the Cadillac Lyriq and the Genesis electrified GV70. Inside, the look is similar to the Grand Wagoneer full-size SUV, with a 2-spoke steering wheel and wall-to-wall screens comprising the digital gauge cluster, the central infotainment display, and the passenger side display. I really hope that manufacturers start to move away from all these pixels and screens. Like right now, I'm looking at 2 screens. This is where I spend my workday. I'm looking at this screen right here, looking at this screen, and then I want to go and take a relaxing drive. I don't want to look at more screens inside of the cars that I'm driving. I want to have craftsmanship in there and some physical buttons that I can touch and smell and feel the texture of. And in addition to these screens, you also have a head-up display. So screens all over. A 600 horsepower setup with front and rear electric motors is the only powertrain choice on the Wagoneer S Launch Edition, which reached 0 to 60 in this Jeep in 3.4 seconds. I'm not sure what the purpose of that is, why you need 600 horsepower. Why not reduce the power a little bit and increase the range? Maybe do 0 to 60 in 5 seconds. It's still very quick. And you can have a range of maybe, I don't know how this technology works, but I assume that if you lower the power of the car, you will increase the range by a little bit. So maybe have 340 miles of range in 0 to 60 in 5 seconds. That would be more of a suiting setup for this type of vehicle, in my opinion. Battery has a capacity of 100.5 kilowatt hours, can go from 20 to 80% in 23 minutes with a fast charger. Wagoneer S doesn't seem at all intended for off-roading, but there is a Wagoneer S Trailhawk concept that they also dropped some images of that looks pretty much production ready, that I do think that Jeep is going to put into production. Which one would you pick, Greta? Would you pick this crazy 600 horsepower Wagoneer S, or would you go with the Trailhawk? I would pick the Trailhawk as well. So with that said, let's jump into Photoshop here and check out this design, and let me know what you think about this design, because I'm gonna share my opinions of this car. So we have a front, side, and rear, and this looks, as I said, like a very, very chiseled and sporty looking Jeep. Look at the thin or slimness of the top half graphics. Usually this grille is something that Jeep is proud of, to just have go all the way to this area, something like this. with the 7 slots like this. But now it more of a sports car design here with this temple design in-house inside of the grille, lit from, it looks like the lighting comes from above and just shines down on these spokes that we have on the inside of the Jeep Wagoneer S. I think it looks good. I mean, it doesn't necessarily feel like a Jeep to me. This feels more like a it feels like every single car company needs to be sporty. It doesn't matter what type of vehicle they're building. They just want to have the word sport in the vehicle for some reason. I don't think that is necessary, specifically not when we're talking about Jeeps, even though it is a pretty good looking car. You have this intake here. I'm not sure if this is an intake. It looks to be completely covered up here with a sensor down here, and you have this graphic feature sticking in and kind of removes some of this ocean of soft surfacing that we have to break that up, like a wave break right there in the middle. The main grille, of course, this being a full EV, happens down here, and I do think they might even open up this top part, and in addition to this lower section when we have the internal combustion engine with the inline 6 later on. Not entirely sure how that's going to work out visually and what they're going to change graphically. Now, looking at the side view here, not a fan at all of these wheels. I think these are some of the least attractive wheels I've seen this year. I don't like them at all. They look very cheap to me, very static with these parallel 5-spoke lines here. Usually I'm a huge fan of 5-spoke designs, but they need to have a little bit of flair to them. This looks, as I said, it just feels unrefined, this wheel. Then in addition to that, we do have these spokes cutting out from these main thick spokes in the sides, and everything being black. You can't even, maybe that's a good thing in this case, you can't appreciate the design of the spoke because they're black, so you can't really see clearly what's going on in the design. But the overall proportions here, just look at, again, how sleek this is and how low the greenhouse sits. The greenhouse is also blacked out. We do have this spoiler at the back. We have this line in the bottom. Let's see if it has a connection. Does it have a connection to the rear? No. Does it have a connection to the front end? No, not really. I don't see any clear connection. So this feels like a line that is almost out of place. I would want to have this sit maybe a little lower to be in line with this line. So we move this line down here, because as you can see, if we do that, we also have a connection to the rear end with this line at the very end point. It sits a little too high, but I do understand why they did it. They want to, again, you know the reason why. We want to carve out some volume because this is a huge volume and this makes it feel heavy. How do we carve some volume out? First of all, add 101 textbook, how to carve out volume of the side view. Just add a black piece at the very bottom, and then you add this a key line here to have this move inwards or be tilted, angled inwards, and that creates more of an athletic looking side view. Specifically if you want to have an SUV or any car look more athletic, that's what you do. In addition to the black plastic going around the wheelhouses, which we talked about earlier as well. This area, if we just zoom in right here, this looks to me like a Toyota, because we have this line here, a taillight that sticks in very far to the side view of the car, and this definitely looks more Toyota to me than any other vehicle. Maybe Jeep took some inspiration from the Japanese when they designed this car. Now in the rear end, same goes like we have in the front end, very thin headlights and very thin taillights here as well. We have the trend of the last century, which is a full light bar going across the entire width here. Nice chamfer up top. I do like this chamfer. And then we have dual wing action in the rear on a Jeep SUV. What is going on? We have one wing right here, as you can see, or spoiler, and then this big massive wing or spoiler, a roof spoiler up top. So we have a super sporty rear end for this new Jeep. I also do like this chamfer down here because this creates a bit of a housing or a framing for the key graphics, which is the taillights in this case. So it looks really good. It definitely has more of a sporty vibe to it than other Jeeps I've seen. Further down low, there's really nothing going on here. They didn't even put in some sporty wings here for a diffuser or something like that. Instead, they just kept everything super clean, and I do believe that maybe the internal combustion engine is going to have a couple of exhaust pipes down here at the bottom to, of course, show that this is an internal combustion version in case that they actually make that one, put that in production. Now, looking at the interior here, thankfully, at least we still have a housing for pretty much every graphic that goes on here. I do like the red interior. It looks very clean. It feels like this is a very upscale design, and everything feels solid just by looking at this picture. It looks like we do have some ambient lighting here on the sides. Not sure what this area is for, if this is a display or maybe some sort of storage compartment. It looks like we have a 12.3-inch display right here in the middle, fully digital, which in this case, I don't mind anymore. I think it's just go with it, make it digital, and have it like that. You can customize it probably however you like. You have a big screen in the middle here, infotainment screen, passenger screen as well. I'm not sure if this is a fourth screen in the it looks to be a screen to me. I'm not sure entirely if this is a fourth screen or not. And in addition to these 4 screens, we're not done yet, because you do have a head-up display that doesn't look to be on right here. Maybe this is a 0 here. I'm not sure if that's the head-up display showing a 0 up there. So there's a lot of screens, a lot of pixels going on in this interior, which is also what we get these days. And we have a flat bottom steering wheel on a Jeep SUV. This comes back to this, everything has to have this sporty vibe to it, which I don't really understand. I don't think this needs to have 600 horsepower. I don't think it needs to be this sleek, even though this is more of a Range Rover Sport or something like that design. A Jeep, it's, you know, the first thing that comes to mind is a Wrangler and a decent pricing, an obtainable price for a capable off-roader. And this feels so disconnected to me from what Jeep used to be. But every brand needs to differentiate themselves. Every brand needs to figure out ways to bring in more revenue to build the cars that they originally started their brand with. So I do think this might be one of these models. Not sure how well the EV is going to sell, but I do think if they actually come out with a inline 6 engine, I do think this will be a huge hit for Jeep, and hopefully bring in some revenue to bring back some more basic Wrangler type vehicle that I want to see personally from Jeep.